name and projects. I'm project obviously in there to and also private on data diving. So all about in lately been running for 5 years now. It is a combination caving, climbing, diving. So thing about around the world is known known cave in springs which people found already hundreds of years ago. And the common problem in the world is that the so-called easy karst is being found already. So if you want to find new caves, you have to go further and deeper and more challenging places. And that is what I actually like really much. I like the new challenges. So he's a very good friend of mine from Norway, Stein Erik Lauritsen. And Stein Erik is the cave professor of Norway. So he's in Bergen University, lecturing and teaching about caves and geology in there. Very knowledgeable guy, knows all the cave and possible cave areas in Norway. And we were chatting with Stein Erik that does he know about any places where there could be possible of new caves, and he pointed out the peninsula in northern Norway, which is quite, it's still on the mainland, but it's quite far from closest roads. So I would say that walking distance would be a couple of days, but we started to use both. So actually, these are the terrains where we are working on. So mountains, 1 kilometer, 2 kilometer high, rising directly from the mountains. And we go through them to try to find the karst plains in there, try to find springs or dry caves where to start the exploration. And like I said, 5 years ago, his friend of ours, Chloe, she's a French caver and cave diver living currently in Norway. So one summer, me and Chloe just took as our job to go through these areas that Stein Erik was pointing to us, and we hired guys with the boats to go through the possible sources of caves. And this is where we started. This is the deepest cave in whole Scandinavia, Veggfjellan. This is over 600 meters deep. It has a 120-meter deep pitch in there. We did it a couple of years back, the whole trip through it. So very exciting place. But what we actually did was we entered from the fjord underneath this cave to find if the cave is actually deeper, and we found passage in 13 meters which connects to the cave. So actually be able, by diving the area, we were able to extend the deepest cave in Scandinavia for hundreds of meters again. So when I said that we are looking for the karst and limestone, so this is the places that we are looking for. This is on the other side of the Veggfjellan in this fjord. This is a limestone band, and it's very pure limestone. It's almost like a marble. So you can see the white stripe coming out from the sea and extending to the top of the mountain. The top is 1 kilometer. So we are having 1 kilometer high marble band in there, and those are the places where you look for the caves. And in this area, the band is quite in vertical shape, but in the next cave that I'm going to show you, it's more in the horizontal. So another place where we went was close city of Inhavet, and there we have a mountain called Veggfjellan, and we could see from far away from the boat that okay, we have some streams appearing in the middle of the cave on the mountain wall, so that is a possible place for a cave. And we climbed the first entrance. The lower entrance is 80 meters from the sea. It's not completely vertical, but, so no need for ropes, but it's a little bit challenge to climb there still because there's no direct route up. And we found a cave entrance which is breathing, and this is always a good sign that if you have a breathing cave, so then you know that the system has some size. And when we entered the system, we saw the water also, which was coming out, which we saw earlier from the outside. So actually, then we knew that this cave is going to continue because there's water flowing from the inside of the mountain. So this was the very first, like, big find on this trip. And we stumbled on a sump. And usually there has been dry cavers on this area from the 50s, and actually from the 50s they were usually coming from UK. So they were English cavers who visited Norway and were able to find quite a much of dry caves, but they always stopped the exploration on the stump. So we knew that if there would be someone here before, they would stop here, so we would have a virgin cave behind this stump. So the water looks actually quite clear in there. So we were equipped with dive equipment, so we came back on the next day with the dive equipment. Chloe was the first to go to the sump, and I was filming her to go past the sump, and maybe half an hour back she came, oh, it's a cave and it's continuing. So, yeah, so that was a great feeling because we had now a good start for the project. And this is the project mountain. So you can see the water appearing on the down in 80 meters, but then you have 1.2 kilometers of mountain on top of you. So it's a very nice looking place also. About how we explored the cave. So I was mentioning the boat ride. So it's a half an hour ride with the boat from the nearest harbor, and then you have to start climbing. So we have three entrances now. We have the lower entrance in 80 meters. We have the central entrance. We call it Crystal Room. It's in 200 meters, and then the top entrance where we believe that the water is entering the system is 300 meters. So there's some walking and climbing before you can reach the place. So it is mountain forest, some rope climbing, and then some climbing with harness, but nothing fully vertical climbing. It takes usually to the top entrance a couple of hours to climb with a backpack of 30-40 kilos. You enter the cave. It's quite small in size compared to the other cave projects that what we have been doing. The diameter is from 2 meters to, well, I think the highest passages on some rift are 30 meters high, but that is the absolute maximum on the cave. It's quite young cave, I would say, because you still have the oval shape on the pressure tunnels. It haven't been formed yet for a longer, so it's definitely post-glacier cave. The sumps are quite shallow, so on all the entrances we are facing multiple sumps. But the sumps can be only 4 meters deep, 10 meters deep. So we are actually equipped with quite small tanks. Partly because of the size of the cave, we cannot take the large rebreathers. There wouldn't be any benefit of bringing the rebreathers. So we are using everything from 3-liter steel tanks to 3-liter carbon tanks to 6.8-liter carbon tanks. So again, think that you would, or I would say that you would think what you need and then you take that. So we are not fixed into certain kind of equipment. So we take what is beneficial for the project. Some crawling places in there, another sump to dive. So I think this is from the main entrance, the second sump. This is 100 meters long and its maximum depth of 7 meters. So not so demanding diving, but what makes it demanding that you are behind multiple sumps and you have to climb between. So always the risk on this kind of project that if you break a leg or something happens beyond the sump, so it's only you and your exploration friend who are there. So it's quite a much of responsibility for the other to take care of the wounded diver. We have stream passages where the water is raging, and I'm later on going to show some problems that we face on the mountain. There's dry passages where you have the water, the mountain is not completely sealed, so there's lots of cracks in the ceiling where the water also enters. So you don't only have the water passage where you're walking, water is also entering from the ceiling. And this is one reason to use the carbon tanks, that when you have these kind of river passages, so it's very easy transportation because they float. No, but with the carbon tanks, you have to be extremely careful that you don't break the surfaces. So this is just for the photo opportunity. Another sump where we go, and this shows really well the oval shape of it. We have lots of small scallops in there, which tells a story about very high velocity water movements at some times. So this also tells that you don't want to be in this tunnel when it's raining. And about the weather, so we are on the Northern Atlantic, on the coast of Northern Atlantic, and the weather can change quite rapidly. And sometimes you get into your watch storm warning that the pressure is changing rapidly. And then you don't want to be in the mountain, you don't want to be inside or diving in the mountain. Because in the Norwegian, in the region, you have plateaus, high mountains, and if you are traveling from Finland to Norway, you have to cross some plateaus which are quite high, so they are all over a kilometer high, and the roads get closed only because of wind. There's so high winds in the plateaus that the cars are not allowed to cross the plateaus. So the weather is a factor in this area. This is our cave entrance on a dry fall day, and it would be like a perfect opportunity to go, because now you know that if you go upstream, you don't have to fight against the current, or if you go downstream, you are not afraid that the current is going to take you in. But we were on an expedition in a day like this, and it was Chloe who was going first through the sump, and I was helping the other guys to do some measurements on the before the sump. And I was maybe half an hour later going through the sump, and Chloe was there waiting for me, and I was asking that, why haven't you gone further? And she said that she showed with the flashlight into the bottom that the water level have risen 30 centimeters during this half an hour. So I think we should go. And yeah, we made the decision to start coming back, and this was in 4 hours. So the tunnel where we were walking was now full of water. It was transformed into a pressure tunnel, so whoever is inside was thrown outside. So this is the problem on areas where you have large catchment area and very fast reaction of the water. So that's why we usually go in the winter. So in the winter, there's other difficulties. So you could have minus 10 degrees and then some wind factor in there. But then when you start having 20 meters per second wind and minus 10, so then it's a whole different story. But you still have the climbing, and in some parts it's easier because the snow, if it's carrying you, the snow, so actually it's quite easy to walk. But then if it's a certain kind of snow where you sunk, so you could be up here in the snow. So again, 300 meters up in the cave entrance, where we usually put our base camp in there. We have some tarpets or tents in there. We make the food in there, and we store part of the equipment there. But during the night, there could be 10, 20 degree minus and some snowfall. So sometimes when you are digging out your dry suit from the snow and try to twist it so you can wear it, so it's sometimes it's good to go into the sump and then just get it wet so you can put it on. But inside the cave, again, more stable conditions, and water is always in liquid form inside the cave. So again, that this cave reacts so fast, so it doesn't froze up. We have been in some caves where it's like ice skating track inside the mountain in the wintertime, because the water movement is so slow and it's breathing so much, so the minus degrees will definitely go inside the cave and the water will froze. We are not only doing the project for our own enjoyment or taking pictures. We also want to contribute. So we are in close contact with Stein Erik, who is the cave professor in Norway, but also the cave diving and the caving community around in Norway. So we always try to think of new ways to contribute. We try to get as much data from the cave as possible. So one thing is to measure. We have installed the loggers in the sumps in the cave. So we have 3 different caves, which 2 are now connected. So this was installed into the 3rd cave, which we hope to connect to the other 2 later on. But it's a logger which logs pressure and time and temperature. So it was placed in 4 meters, and then it was actually the whole pandemic. The logger was there because we were not able to retrieve it. We were not able to travel to Norway, so it was 1.5 years there, and we can see from the logger that it is the temperature in the water is from minus 0.4 till 14 degrees Celsius. So in the summer, you have quite nice 14 degrees Celsius, but in the winter where we usually run the project, so the water can almost be minus, or it has been minus at some point. And the depth is, the normal water level is 4 meters, but it has gone down until 2 meters, but it also have been going up to 9.5 meters. So those are the moments where you don't want to be in that cave because there's flow and there's a depth. While we go, we usually have on a wet notes a sketch of the cave, so we stop now and then in water and also in dry because we are multi-sump diving, so we maybe go past the 20-meter long sump, and then when we are at the dry we take the sketchbook and we draw the cave. So this is good way to put some details up, but then in the dry parts we use a little bit technical help. So here we have a Disto X laser measurement device and Topodroid software on the Android tablet, which is this is like IP64, a little bit water resistant. But then if we go past the sumps doing exploration, we have a Finnish company have made an underwater tablet which can be used underwater to take measurements. Unfortunately, the laser doesn't work really well underwater, so it's manual feeding and manual measuring, but you have the same like device to put the measurements in that you would use in the dry parts, and then when you exit the cave you already have a ready 3D model on the tablet which can be then used in different programs. And the program actually produces this kind of map, very detailed because based on the laser, and then we also try to do as much as drawing inside the cave as possible to have a very detailed map of the place. And if you would place that map in example here on the Google Earth, you would see the mountain and where we are. So when I was talking that the marble band is quite horizontal in here, so that's why we don't need usually climbing equipment inside the cave. So we have maybe 3 or 4 meter pitches which we are able to free climb inside if they are on dry. So no problem going those without the climbing gear. And here you can see on the right side we have the waterfall, the original entrance, 80 meters, and then the crystal room in the between. Those two caves are being connected already, and on the left we have the waterfall entry where we believe the water is entering the system. And it doesn't show in here, maybe it's in different color, but the total length at this point without the connection is 2.5 kilometers. And we are looking to add a couple of kilometers more in there. So now we have over 10 sumps on this 2.5 kilometers. So either way, we are going to have multiple sumps or some big sumps in between the top entrance and the middle entrance. And the new thing about this summer, because we just came from the project, so we were flying in on just 2 days ago, and we came directly from Norway from this project. So in the summer, we concentrate on doing scouting the area because then you can walk on the mountain, and in the winter we are actually pushing the cave. So we tried dye tracing because we don't know yet that if the top entrance is connected to the middle entrance. And this was actually the first time that I was using dye tracing on systems like this. And I was pouring the dye trace and I was wondering that how does it show in the cave. So we had guys 200 meters in the first sump to check that if the color will come there. So the question is that will it dilute so much? So, but when it entered the sump, there was no question that, yeah, you can see it when it comes. But the problem is that it didn't come in the central entrance. So we were waiting there for several hours. And so either the water is going somewhere else or we have a huge sump in there. Either way, I think in the winter we're going to have some answers. We are going to again go to the next phase of the project. We are trying to apply side mount rebreathers because the sump where we are now diving is already a 20-meter deep, and it's 1 kilometer in, and then the small tanks that we have been using are not enough. So yeah, so exciting times on the winter exploration happening in the Veggfjellan. That was actually my presentation, and I think the questions will come later on. So thank you for your